I'm sorry if I'm interrupting, but there's no sound and there hasn't been this meeting. It looks like there's still on mute from the host.
Starting over.
We're not starting over. Is that better, Andrea?
Yeah, I can hear you now. It was quiet on YouTube too.
Okay, very quickly, if you wouldn't mind indulging me, Mr. Chair. We do have quorum this evening. The Planning Commission approved Resolution 2023-02 regarding the multifamily planning tax exemption program to forward on to the City Council. And we're now hearing from Ted Hill from Public Works Engineering regarding the 24 to 29 6-year tip. So we will move on from there.
Great summary. We're all caught up.
Thank you.
Andrea Bell did work on the master plan for Western State Hospital, so she may have more specific details than I do. Andrea, we've been talking about transportation mitigation, parking, and the number of employees on site. But this is a 10-year plan, and so therefore we look at transportation issues based upon the phasing of the development. Anything I missed?
No, I think that sums it all up right now.
And my apologies.
Okay. We good to move forward or?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Go ahead.
All right. So just to give you a visual, I'm all about visuals. The blue lines are obviously the projects that are coming off the list. And the one little dot over there by Western State Hospital is the temporary and permanent signal location. That'll again be this summer for temporary and like 4 years away for the permanent is roughly the estimate right now. Then because I don't have much, but that is the location where the temporary and permanent signal will be going. Looking at Western State Hospital. And with that, like I said, small list of what we're adding and deleting, but a huge list of what we currently got going on over the next few years. So open for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Any questions? Mr. Wagman?
Update on Washington.
Washington Boulevard. So I want to say, where are we at? I think they are going to be, they're pouring concrete. I think they're going to pave. It was it the 20th of this month? I think it was the 20th, 23rd. They're going to try a paving from Vernon up to Lake City. I'm not sure if it's going to be both lifts or a single lift, but at least get asphalt down. All the water through that area is installed, all the storm, the roundabout, obviously at Alameda is done. For Ardmore, sorry, not Alameda, Ardmore. Yeah, a lot of progress. I mean, these guys are blazing. They're months ahead of schedule, which is great.
They're how much ahead?
They're months ahead of schedule from what we had predicted.
Had perfect weather almost.
Perfect weather. Unfortunately, our soils lend to a lot of dust, so we got to throw a lot of water on it. It dries out fast, and we're experiencing the same thing over on Elwood. Just really dusty soils once it dries out, and it doesn't take long to dry out. So, but yeah, great weather to get stuff done. We have what 2-3 other projects kicking off here, and I think we have 3 or 4 going out to bid before the end of August. So we have a really busy summer in our capital projects division.
Well, it's looking nice.
It looks very beautiful. Yes, very beautiful.
I think it's gonna be very functional. You know, I mean, the roundabouts, people are starting to learn how to use them.
Has taken a little while.
But what I am a little concerned, what's going on? You know, you look at the roundabout at Veterans. I mean, somebody just drove up right over the top of that thing. What are we learning about that? Are these people alcohol or what do we know?
That one definitely had speeding is what we were told in the mix. And yeah, we can't, you know, there's some things we can't engineer out of people.
I don't expect from an engineering point of view, but it just seems, I look at tire marks pretty high up on concrete. I'm going, what the heck? Do we need to come back to our police department and look at a little bit of law enforcement or?
And some tire marks are just, you know, if you have I-5 shut down, you know, that happened not that long ago with an accident and everybody starts bailing off. We had trucks getting stuck at Washington and Edgewood. because they couldn't make the roundabout. Well, that roundabout really wasn't designed for a box truck, big container truck to be going through. And it got stuck. It almost went over sideways from what the neighbors said. They had pictures that were pretty bad. So yeah, they'll drive up over whatever they can trying to get around things just due to traffic. So
I would comment this way, roundabouts 3, vehicles 0. A good example is another person chose to drive through a roundabout where they're pouring the concrete and just failed to recognize the construction workers. So that gives you an idea. I'm just going to say it, of the stupidity of some people when they drive.
Okay. Can't make a video.
let's just say I have so much trust in humanity. I look left and right when I go into the roundabout, even though I should only be looking left. So.
Well, I mean, we'd like to have a community. I guess, we throw the term around a livable community or a walkable community, safe community, those kinds of things. And when you see those kind of incidents, you go, wow, we've got some people that need some help.
Yeah. Well, even the little.
And I don't mean to be derogatory against people, but doggone it, how do we solve that problem?
Good question. I mean, we experienced it at the little pork chop there at Nyanza and Gravelly. A rock there, it literally had 2 cars on it within a few weeks, high centered up on one of those big rocks in the middle of the pork chop. It's like, turn your car, or, maybe they had car problems. They couldn't turn their car. But it's difficult.
Well, I'm a building engineer for a building in Tacoma, and they turn the corners. We have a small rock. It's basically a little bit bigger than the 2-man rock. And they drive over the top of that. And now the homeless have decided to use that as their little hockey puck game. And so they moved it out on the sidewalk this morning. So, I mean, I guess we need to have bigger rocks. We need 500 to 1,000 pound rocks, and that'll stop them, I guess. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Any other questions, comments? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
That's good.
Looks like the next item is the climate change annual report.
Yes,
And Andrea is presenting this one.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So Andrea Bell is with the Community and Economic Development Department. And Andrea, I believe you're sharing your screen.
I think you're on mute still, Andrea. There you go.
Yes, I am. And yes, I can share my screen.
Great.
Actually, Tiffany, I do not have the option to share my screen right now.
1 minute, please. My apologies. Just when you think you got it all under control.
Like you've been promoted to a panelist, so
And are you able to share now?
Yes, I can. And I'm also promoted to a panelist. Give me just a moment.
well, welcome and go ahead whenever you're ready.
Foster. Oh, there's.
I'm sorry, I got kicked out. Things are obviously going very smooth this evening.
You're not alone.
That makes me feel better. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Oops. Apologize, I've got my presentation here as well that I'm going to go off of, so hopefully you can still see everything. So good evening. Thank you for having me tonight, Mr. Chair and Planning Commission. As Tiffany said, I'm Andrea Bell and I am the Associate Planner for Lakewood, and I am here to present the progress report on the Climate Change Action Plan. So pursuant to House Bill 1181, which officially goes into effect in July of 2023, communities like Lakewood here in Washington are required to adopt this 5-year climate change action plan to address a number of issues, including and not limited to population growth, transportation, housing, public services, utilities, greenhouse gas emission, carbon sequestration, and so forth. Lakewood knew about this many years ago, and so we got the ball rolling and got out in front of it. In 2021, Lakewood adopted Chapter 10 of the Comprehensive Plan, which is known as the Energy and Climate Change Chapter. Following that, in 2022, we were one of 8 cities in Washington to win a state in Washington State to win a Governor's Smart Climate Change Strategies Award for the adoption of that chapter. And then in October of that year, 2022, Lakewood also adopted an ordinance, which is ordinance number 776, to establish a 3-year climate change work plan, which was done by Mr. Buer here. And that includes 14 action items that Lakewood is actively pursuing to address progress and policies towards climate change goals and policies. I'm hoping you guys were able to look at the report I have this year. Is that in front of you by chance?
I don't believe so. I think we got the 9-page presentation is what.
Yes, it was emailed to the commission yesterday, I believe, and it had the chart of the 14 action items that you saw last fall, along with a status update in that column. So Andrea, do you have it?
I can bring that up. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So this is the report that was sent to you. I've kind of covered most of the background here, but this is the ordinance number 776 that was originally adopted.
Andrea,
I'm just going.
Could you blow that up?
Yeah. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. So this is long, and I'm just going to scroll through it real quick to show you what we have. But as you can see, there are 14 action items here on this list. This again was adopted in late 2022 around October. So we've been I'm so sorry, my daughter came home from dance. Anyway, so this is the chart that we were actively working on. And the only difference that you're going to see in the ordinance that we adopted in 22 versus what you're looking at in this chart now is the column that states updated progress report. And so since the adoption of this ordinance, and then this, what you see here is just us going through and saying, where are we at now? How far have we come? What do we still need to do? And so we're in a variety of stages here with this. For the most part, this 3-year action plan is intended to assist us in moving towards adopting the 5-year climate change action plan, goals and policies that are going to help us get there and implement effective strategies to meet our goals. Is it okay if I scroll through this, or did we want to maybe spend some time discussing it, or perhaps at the end?
Yeah, I think just go through and we'll have questions at the end. That's good.
Yep. Okay, great. I'm going to go back to my image and then my presentation real quick. Sorry, just a moment. So as we begin to draft and continue to gather data, we do anticipate a variety of challenges that are sometimes going to be Lakewood specific, sometimes just in general. However, planning for these challenges, we know it's going to assist us in creating proactive measures to accurately report on future climate change impacts. We've discussed what we think some of these are going to be as we continue the process with creating this document. And some of those include changes in zoning and increased densities, which we know was recently adopted by the legislature, and we'll probably see in comprehensive plan amendments, probably beginning in 2024, closer to the end of 2024. We know that in March 1st of this year, we adopted our new tree preservation code, which is fairly restrictive. So how do we save trees and still continue to increase density? New development will increase costs. How does that fit in with the missing middle housing? Lakewood is considered a contract city. We are not full service, and so it will be difficult for us to sometimes obtain data from utilities related to climate change. Lakewood can sometimes be considered a barbell city. It may be more difficult and take longer to see changes in lower income areas. Outreach and engagement. That's one of the things the city is actually working on right now. The UW Evans School, I believe sometime either earlier this year or at the end of 2022, did a survey to reach out to the community and see what their degree of concern was with regard to climate change, any evidence they're seeing, how it impacts them. So we've already started that process, and Lakewood is currently also conducting a survey on people's experience with climate change and how that could impact housing. I believe that is set to close here sometime next week. So we're already doing that, but we understand that it could be a complication as well, just in terms of making sure we have equity and equality in terms of, who's participating and making sure it's getting out to everyone. We do have a large portion of this community that has an attachment to historical preservation, whether it actually be that certain properties or certain elements in Lakewood are considered truly historical or not, and on the registrar, but there's still an element of just holding on to that history and not necessarily wanting to see a lot of change, which we definitely will see with goals and policies and action when it comes to climate change, because in order to do that, a lot will have to change. And then also just the fact that we do have the military base here, so military presence and compatibility. Last thing, balancing economic development and industrial growth with climate change factors. A lot of the things we're seeing are many more warehouses, especially in Woodbrook, increased truck traffic, and things of that nature. So that's definitely something we'll see as a struggle and a challenge to hopefully combat and find the best goals and policies to work through that. This is the first of many progress reports you'll probably be hearing from me. It is intended that the first draft of this 5-year climate change action plan will be completed in 2024. You will likely hear from me long before then, but it will go before the Planning Commission prior to arriving at City Council. That is kind of the outline of the report I've created for you this evening. I really appreciate your time, and I'm open to any questions that you might have. I'm happy to scroll back through the table or anything that you may need.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Any comment, Mr. Estrada?
Just a comment. It was very interesting to note that although climate change affects us all, it affects the poor more. I mean, so my bill goes up, I pay it. Their bill goes up, it's harder. So for me, that was quite an eye opener. I didn't realize that. So the emphasis again is on the poor in our city, how it's going to impact this climate change rules. So
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Larson?
Thank you, Andrew. This is a really well-developed document over time, and it's clear that a lot of work has gone into it. My question is, do we have an element for hydrogen or other zero emission fuels to be able to be fostered in the city? And if not, should that become an element of the plan as time goes on?
Yeah, we don't necessarily have anything laid out for that yet as of this time, but what we do plan is to have that type of element as be part of the action plan, the 5-year action plan that we're going to be creating. I don't know that necessarily anything hydrogen specific is in the 14 item 3-year action plan, which isn't necessarily surprising. But it definitely, things like that, we're going to encompass all of it into the 5-year plan. And at the beginning, it's going to be very basic, and it's going to really be redefined over time. And that's kind of the goal we have. The more we learn, the more research and analysis we get, we're really going to make it a really comprehensive and complex document. It might seem green at first, but that's our goal, is to really include everything.
Thank you. Mr. Beaver, did you have a comment?
In attempting to address Mr. Estrada's comment, the city has a fund referred to as 1406, which we have been using to assist in the construction of affordable housing. It's about $100,000 a year, potentially $1 million over 10 years. And there's some discussion about it going out with a bond and taking the $1 million and promoting affordable housing. Myself and Mr. Gum have been talking about using 1406 funds via the rental housing safety program. So when people come in and are required to do inspections, potentially using those funds to upgrade mechanical systems and thus reduce greenhouse gases, as well as promoting for more efficient energy use in affordable units. So that's something that's on the table. It needs much more refinement. It's a unique idea. We haven't gotten any further than this discussion. We have some limitations that the state imposes upon us, but we are mindful that we represent 63,000 people. And there are groups of people who struggle more with energy and climate change issues than others. So we're trying to be respectful of all groups and see if we can't come up with some sort of plan that works. The other piece, Andrea mentioned various objectives and plans. One of the things that I've heard from other agencies who are a little further along on this than we are is to try to focus on a limited number of plans or objectives. And we've tried to do that with the 14, okay? So yes, we can promote and put in the plan our policies, but I do think as we go through, when we look at climate change and we finish some of these, we go back and say, okay, we need to take these off and add some more. I will tell you about half of the ones on the list have kind of been done. And so the question then becomes, when do we go back and review the plan and add more? It seems to me a good time would be when we're going through the 2024 process. And one that has come up that you guys talked about that keeps coming back in through surveys is urban agriculture. And so I do think that's going to be something that you will hear more about as you update the plan. So just an FYI.
Thank
And
you.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Andrea, I apologize.
No, your input is great. I really appreciate it.
Mr. Wagman?
Yes, thank you. When you look at our community, the things we have to do, and certainly on the Planning Commission, we're kind of regulated by the Growth Management Act. And so that's where we're working. And now we throw in this climate change thing that has some impact on that. But we also, as a city, are trying to have a place where we have more jobs, but also generate revenue for our community so that we can do some of the things that we'd like to see. Like, we talked about the roundabouts and those kinds of things out there. From your perspective, talking to the Planning Commission, who has to kind of make recommendations to City Council about how the best way to do some of these things, what are the long poles in the tent that you look at from your climate change point of view that we should be aware of or think about when we evaluate changes or to any of the plans that we have?
I think the first thing really would be to take a look at the 3-year action plan, because that started as a much longer list and slowly but surely was broken down over time to result in these 14 different action items. Again, it's not necessarily comprehensive. As we go through things, we're going to find this, one element may be more crucial or important than the other, or one may have a higher priority than others. But I think just really taking a look at some of the different easily accessible information that's out there to us. For instance, Google Environmental Insights. They have some really good, just easily accessible information with regard to building emissions and potential for solar panels. I think, I don't know what the percentage is, but it also talks about greenhouse gas emissions and tree canopy coverage and things like that. So I think utilizing the information that's easily available to us and kind of like honing in on that and then trying to figure out, again, what elements we're going to prioritize over others. A lot of things that we're moving towards with increased truck traffic and things like that here in Lakewood. I know Mr. Buer is working on a grant right now, actually with Google, to address increased traffic and some of the mitigation techniques that we could use moving forward, which is something we may implement into this 5-year plan. Looking at things like that. And then if you go back to Department of Licensing specific to traffic, you can actually find that there's, I think, about 519 EV vehicles that are registered with the state. And I think we have about, or I'm sorry, not with the state, with Lakewood specifically. And then I think we have about, I think it's 27 public charging stations. So, that might be a small blip in something, but when we're looking at, emissions and traffic and, small steps or progress towards, getting us to where we want to be, I think that's really important. I apologize if that's kind of a vague answer, and I know the question's a little bit broad, but as we go forward, we're going to be able to kind of address what the main elements that are Lakewood specific that we're going to need to focus on. And I'll be able to come back with a progress report probably by the end of 2023 to kind of say, these are the things we're really going to want to focus on and hone in on and really develop strategies to, getting to goals and policies for those.
Well, thank you for that. I look at some of the things we're doing. We're putting a lot of warehouses up, but those warehouses mean the water doesn't go into the ground in those places. But the other thing is many of those warehouses, they're not real big job creators. And one of the tasks that we're having is, how do we have livable wage jobs in our community so that people don't have to travel, which, you create some of those emissions. So what kind of, do you have some thoughts for us on what kind of businesses we should bring in here that will increase employable jobs for folks? Other than the warehouses certainly bring in good tax revenue for us as a community, but it doesn't really help our citizens as far as job wise. So I just be interested in your thoughts there.
Absolutely. As part of this progress report that I put together, I personally at this time don't necessarily have any recommendations, but that is something I'd really be interested to look into, and I can absolutely do that and bring that information forward to you guys with my next progress report. I'd be happy to do that.
You want to go first?
If I can just add a little bit to Andrea's comments. First of all, when it comes to programs on climate change, my first topic would be to keep it simple, things that the public can readily recognize and understand. Also to promote programs that the public strongly supports and stay away from those projects in as much as possible that are hot button topics. A good example of that is prohibition of natural gas. That was a big topic that hit Tacoma. City, frankly, came in on record opposing the Energy Conservation Code because there was no alternative to electricity if you're not having natural gas. And there are some parts of Washington that don't have electricity. So how do people provide for power for their structures? So that's all under review, again, by the state. I also say, remember this, we started this program with a $20,000 grant from Department of Commerce. We had no money for climate change. And just by putting something on paper and saying, yeah, we're going to put some commitment to this, look how far we've come. I mean, last week, the city council set aside $340,000 for the next phase of the urban forestry program. So I think by just saying, yeah, this is important to the city, you can take it to some degrees. I think we're also taking advantage of a lot of freebies, and I will call them that. But we've come quite a distance, and so people think that we have a bit of a track record, and they're willing to support us on some other proposals. The Google thing, for example, that grant, you have to have a minimum of 100 traffic signals, but we only have 62. But because we've built so many roundabouts in such a short period of time, I'm trying to get them to recognize that we're special. So I've actually been told that Google is watching us and that maybe we can get the exception to do the grant, which will then take a look at an AI process where we look at the flow of all traffic through all of our signals to see if we can find a more efficient system. That will include not just in Lakewood, but also the traffic signals that go into I-5. So that's kind of my take on this. We've come a long way with kind of limited funding opportunities so far.
Thank you. Any other comments? Mr. Estrada?
Brian, go first.
I just had one, and really you kind of addressed my comment, but just making sure we're making these as we think about 2024 and the 5-year plan, making them achievable. And you've mentioned it, keeping it simple, making sure we're moving and we can get there. So I'll second that as something that really should be high on the list of we do need to keep it simple and achievable so we can get these goals done.
Absolutely. And I think that's what we're really trying to do. And that's why when I say this first draft is going to be somewhat basic and somewhat green, is we don't want to put ourselves in a position where we create so many objectives and goals and policies that we're truly not able to, succeed or make progress towards them. And like I mentioned with this 14 3-year plan or 3-year work plan that has the 14 items, again, that was much longer. I think it was over 30 items, Mr. Buer, to begin with. 89. And we broke it down into 14. So yes, thank you for mentioning that. We do agree, keeping it simple to start. And then as we continue on and reevaluate, every however many years, it is a 5-year work plan, but hopefully we'll continue with it throughout. We'll continue to address and reevaluate and see if certain things change or we need to add more.
Thank you. And Mr. Larson?
I find the count of electric vehicles and public charging stations an interesting set of numbers. I wonder if we have an ability to count the private charging stations in individual homes so that we have a full context. We don't.
That's because we do not have power. And so any private charging stations would be permitted either through the city of Tacoma Power, or Labor and Industries. So we'd have to request a special report to get a list of the permits for those facilities. That would take some time.
Yeah, and it's extra hours too. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone, any other comments? Yeah, I appreciate the presentation. I had just a couple kind of echoing some thoughts on, keeping some of these goals simple, hitting the low-hanging fruit. I like the idea of quantifiable goals, and we can pull the plug when needed. And if we're not getting any traction on something, then it just seems like this industry is a fast-moving, lots of things coming in and out, and so hitting on them when you can and when it makes sense, and not dwelling on it in the future if we kind of miss the boat on some things. And then also, if we could identify some high impact, a handful of high impact projects or topics, maybe have, focusing on that a little bit, just to kind of keep a silo, I guess, a little bit, and not be so spread out on this topic. So those are my comments. Okay, well, no other comments here. I appreciate your presentation, and thank you. Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
That wraps up our new business. So on to number 9. Do we have any reports from city council, staff? I didn't see anyone, city council.
Councilmember Boki's not here this evening, so no. And as far as staff presentation for you, Mr. Chair, simply to say we're back on the 2-week schedule, so 2 weeks from tonight. But the meeting after that would have fallen on July 5th, and so we've canceled that. I have a feeling many of us are not going to be around the day after July 4th, so it'll be June 22nd? No,
21st is
June-
what it said here.
sorry. Let me start over. Today's the 7th, so June 21st, and then the next one would be the second one in July.
Okay, I will be gone June 21st.
As will I.
I'll be here.
I
Okay,
think Mr. Daniels will be back, so we should be fine.
okay, good. Good deal. Well, yeah, then that concludes the meeting and,
Question.
huh?
I have a question.
Oh, okay.
On the 31st of May, we met and voted on the amendment regarding the racket club. But I went forward with the question, and Tiffany, what's that question called?
Included in the findings of fact was a request and recommendation to the city council to reach out to the racket club to verify that do they charge either senior clubs or school districts or other nonprofits that may want to use the facilities any charge to do so? And if they don't, what is the process? If they do, what is the process? So that's included in what you have provided now to the council, and they will start to discuss that on Monday night.
In the question, I raised a question because I was led to believe that in fact it was that they were providing it for free, basically. And I thought, wow, that's great if they can do that. I mean, but there's commercial outfit and they're providing services to the seniors and to the high school for free. That's the way it came across to me. And that's what you heard also. But in fact, not so. Is that correct, Mr. Larson?
I'm recused. I can't discuss.
Okay, now, okay. That's the way it came across. So that's why I asked the question. That's why it's included. Okay. Just let you know.
All right, thank you. Any other comments from anyone? Then we will conclude the meeting today. Thank you, guys.